Good morning. Welcome to the Java Cafe, Java fam.
Good morning, everybody. Good morning. Good morning. I think I'm good here. Good morning. Today is Thursday, March 28th, 2024. It is Thankful Thursday. Welcome to the Java Cafe. We have a guest this morning. I just wanted to mention, y'all know I'm authentic, real, and just, first of all, this young lady is a court sister of a Java family member, Tashad, who was probably in the building or somewhere sharing and tagging people to come in and support her sister. And I just realized I've been calling her Ty based on the spelling, and I hope I'm pronouncing it right. Shake your head in the back. Nope. Tiye. Nope. So we're going to get it right in a second. And so all this time I've just been like, oh, Ty, looking at it once. And then I'm looking at it on the flyer and I'm like, I wonder. So we're going to find out for sure. But this young Black woman is running for a position in Foxborough Public School Committee. And I usually, in the political space, it gets very interesting for me when candidates come on. However, the opportunity to bring on the platform a Black woman that is running to assert her experience and her knowledge in a space of education, when so many that look like her and I are fighting to ensure that our history is not erased, that there is definitely diversity in the staff and the teaching and also in the curriculum to ensure that Black history and our contribution to this country is solidified in textbooks. And so in that vein, I more than welcome her into this space to talk about who she is and why it's so important that those of you that are in that area and believe in diversity and inclusion and equity consider this young woman for the Foxborough Public School Committee, Foxborough School Committee. I think I got it right. So without further ado, please come on in and welcome. And please tell me, because, just seeing your name here and there, I'm like, okay, Ty. And then I looked this morning, I'm like, James, that may not necessarily be right. So
I get Ty a lot. So
okay, nice. I don't feel not too bad, but it's important. It is important to say names correctly. I got Cort and Odima right, which is so. Please introduce yourself, and then from that point forward, we'll be good.
Yeah, my name is Tiye Cort.
I called you Ty the other night. You didn't catch it?
I didn't. Everyone calls me Ty. It's
okay.
Fine.
Okay, well, tell us the right way to say your name.
Tiye.
Tiye. Okay.
Yeah, it's just an extra sound at the end.
Okay, well, I love names that have more than one syllable. Hi, Ma, but James is just one. If you have two or more, I'm like, that's kind of dope.
So okay, then you would love my kids.
Okay, so introduce yourself, and at the end of that, tell us their names, and let's jump right in the convo as far as who you are and your background and why you were taking this step to be another Black woman leading, especially in the space of education.
Yeah. Well, first of all, thank you for welcoming me onto the platform. This is really exciting for me. And it's my first public interview around this whole campaign. So I'm excited. I'm honored.
If you know the platform, hi Tashad, we like doing first. So, please go ahead and just tell folks who you are, and don't forget to tell us the baby's names.
Yes, of course. So my name is Tiye Cort Odima. I'm a Boston native, so I grew up in Dorchester. I'm Guyanese American. So my dad's from Guyana. My mom is from Alabama. And they met in Boston. They've been here ever since. And I grew up in Boston Public Schools. I went to college in Boston. I went to Wentworth Institute of Technology, grad school in Boston, Emmanuel College, and then grad school again in Texas, UT Austin. But after school, I moved back to the Boston area. got married, had 2 kids. So I have a 2-year-old and an 8-month-old. Their names are Onome
Oh, no, wait.
and Ejiro.
Israel, as in the
Ejiro, Ejiro.
I go ahead, and I'm not even going to mess up. Yep.
Okay. So becoming a parent and having grown up with education being a priority in my family, that's just something that I've always been around. I've always been on a campus. My dad is he's currently a professor emeritus at Wentworth, so he's been there over 40 years. I grew up on the campus, and so that has always been something that I knew was in my future.
Mhm.
Just in what capacity, I didn't know.
Okay. And so this point of, have you had any time of being employed in the education industry, either a teacher? Okay, tell us about that. And where was your first landing in sort of that education space, your first position?
Yeah. So my first teaching job was a teaching fellowship at Mother Caroline Academy on Blue Hill Ave.
Yep.
I actually went there for middle school, so it was a full circle moment coming back as a teaching
Okay.
fellow. So I was there for 2 years while I was doing my first master's. And that was where I was thrown into it. Like, you're a teaching fellow, you do all the work. You teach, you do coaching, you're supervising study halls, you're planning field trips, you're doing a little bit of everything. And I liked that space because it's a school that is it's predominantly Black and brown girls, which that's the only teaching experience I had where that was the demographic of that space, of the
Mhm.
education space. So from there, I went on to teach for a year at a boarding school in Dublin, New Hampshire, which was the complete opposite. It was in
I
the
was going to
mountains.
say you got the full spectrum in them first
Yeah.
years, Jesus.
It was in the mountains of New Hampshire. Like, there were bears on the lacrosse field at times. Like, it was up there. But it was super educational for me, just being in a space where, again, I was the only Black teacher there. I had students it was a boarding school, so there were students from all over. But I think that I really connected with a lot of the students who were minority groups. There were Black students, there were a lot of students who were Dominican. Like, I had connections there just off the bat. And I think having those connections helped with teaching and living on campus and being around kids 24/7. So that was an experience. And then I got into UT Austin. So I moved to Austin, Texas, originally for a master's program or a PhD program in multicultural special ed. So there was a lot of research around IEPs, the laws around accommodations, and different things that students need in spaces. So that was originally what I studied. And then I transferred to the curriculum and instruction program and studied language and literacy. So being in Austin, being in Texas, and this was around 2015, 2016. So Trump had just gotten elected. It was a really interesting time. Yeah, take a sip. It was an interesting time, but again, I feel like the times that I was in different areas, whether it was New Hampshire or Texas or back up here in Boston, every teaching experience that I had was completely different, and gave me another perspective into where exactly I wanted to be. So right now, currently, I'm an adjunct at Wentworth Institute of Technology. I teach English. And I like that space. I like teaching primarily freshmen and sophomores. So they're fresh out of high school or out of other programs, and learning to write essays, learning to do research, learning to critically analyze texts and make it sound academic.
Mm.
That's something that I find enjoyable. I like reading and assessing writing, so it's something that I really do like. But even working as a director of curriculum and instruction at some point for Breakthrough Greater Boston, that was during the pandemic. So another like tumultuous time, and having to transfer what would have been in-person learning to online, distance learning, considering that some students didn't have laptops and like getting resources to them. It was just a lot of, it was all encompassed. Like, it wasn't a traditional go to the classroom, teach, go home, grade, come back again and do it all over again. It was a lot of different duties that I feel like got bunched together in all of my experience.
Yep.
So in a way, it kind of lets me know that this is the space that I need to be in. And with all that experience, why not lead? Why not take the
Mm.
opportunity to be an influence and to be a first and to be someone who can really move the needle in the right direction?
So as far as the experience box check, it's so interesting to take the experience that you have and then move into a space of policy. And so let's just jump right in, because a lot, again, folks know that we may plan to go one way, but based on your answer, we may go another. And so I'm hearing so much experience from you, from curriculum to life
Mhm.
experience to the spectrum of Mother Caroline in Dorchester to being up in New Hampshire in a boarding school. How important is it that folks that look like you and share your demographic are in spaces where you are influencing education policy,
Mhm.
especially with your research and study in the space of special education? We can do a whole different show about how our young people are classified
Right.
and, different diagnoses and things like that. So in that context, if you can share with us why it is important for you as a Black woman to lead in this space with the experience that you have.
Yeah, it's super important. We're underrepresented. If you look at the stats of how many teachers of color are in schools in places like Foxborough or in suburbs, it's a disproportionate amount.
Mm.
And even if the students of color in the schools are um, a minority group within that student body, we still need the representation. We still need people to advocate. And if you don't have that experience or that connection to the communities that these students come from, the cultures that they come from, being able to talk to their parents in their language, like that's a huge disconnect. And so, yeah, I think it is, once you're in the position, it is definitely something that is hard. It's tiring. It feels like a labor of love at time.
Yep.
We know that teachers aren't compensated the way that they should be, regardless of race. But I do think that we definitely need the representation. And we have the resources to make that happen. I think about like the Teachers Lounge in Boston who
Shout out
connects.
to Mother Devin and others.
Yes.
Yep.
Yeah. They're doing the work of getting teachers access to these spaces and making sure that the schools are aware of how to retain that talent, retain those teachers who will stay committed, and who will, again, like my big thing is when you are benefiting the smallest group within your student body, everyone benefits.
I'm sorry. That was a preach moment there.
Thank
I
you.
mean, just keep going. I'm sorry. I'll turn my mic off.
But that's my position. And so I think that getting people in leadership positions who can communicate that to the community, who can communicate that to towns, other school leadership, it furthers that message. And I think we just have to be here in order to make it happen so that people can see that, oh, it's not, I'm not giving up everything so that 3 Black kids in a class can benefit. It's not even giving up. We're making sure that we are meeting needs, which is our duty as a school district.
So I have to ask,
Yes.
you talk about resources, you
Mhm.
talk about meeting needs at a school district. I'm sure you were very much aware that last night in my city here, there was a very interesting vote around the school budget.
Mhm.
And as a potential school committee member, policy is important, but we also know that budgets dictate priorities.
Yeah.
What are your thoughts in general? Disclaimer for anyone that's watching and opponents that might, whatever. In general,
Yeah.
how important is the resource when it comes to the investment that a municipality makes in a school budget?
Mm, that's a really good question.
I try.
You're
No,
making
that's
me think.
baseball because my brain wouldn't go this way if you weren't just all in these wonderful spaces and this experience. And I'm listening, and I'm like, okay,
Yeah.
let's go there because I believe it is crucial for anyone that is considering supporting you to understand your stance. And Foxborough's Foxborough, Boston is Boston. However, it's important for folks to know, I believe, where you stand on the investments that are
Mhm.
needed for the resources and a lot of the things that you've named where there are um, disparities for resources, particularly on folks that look like you and I.
Yeah. And you're talking about financial investment, right?
Financial investment,
Yeah.
school budget,
Mhm.
investments that are needed external to school budget, partnerships, anywhere you want to go with that. But I know that that is on the radar in the media right now, as far as Boston and that budget and the way it's being framed. You know, we haven't really peeled the whole onion back yet, but in general, in all fairness to you, budget investments in school districts, how important is that?
I think it's definitely important. I know that our school district receives funding from the state as well. So there are different avenues of getting that financial resource. And I think that the investment is important mostly because the schools are public. So they're part of the town, regardless of thoughts about what's going on in the schools. Like, it's part of the public space. So tax dollars go towards that, as well as repairing our roads and other things. I think in places where, and I'm trying to think specifically about Foxborough, in places where there may be some issues that impact schools that maybe the town is in disagreement with or has some bias against. For example, and this is a thing in Boston too, with the migrant housing crisis. A lot of school districts now have students who have been enrolled in the schools who are from other countries. They're here because their families are here. And for some people, that's an issue. Having students who are able to take advantage of Foxborough schools, where we have a highly rated school district, right? And thinking that their access to the resources that our students who are from here and who live here have, they think that access may be unfair. And my stance on that, and I think anyone in education policy would be able to see this, once you're enrolled in a public school, you are then allowed to have the same resources as anyone else who's enrolled in the public school, regardless of your circumstances while you're there, right? Once you're enrolled, you're a part of it.
Or let's, in this case, you're talking about migrants, or how you got there. Let's keep that one.
Right.
Yep.
Right. So that's my stance on that. And so I think as a general rule, yes, town taxes financially, there is a responsibility for any public access to schools or whatever else is in that municipality. But I think that sometimes the outcries or the opinions or the biases can sort of make people feel like, I don't need to contribute to this, or I shouldn't have to contribute to this, even though it's still a public resource. It's a public thing that anyone who's here and enrolled has access to.
I'm going to go a little bit deep with you and ask, do you believe that education is a human right?
I do.
Why?
I do. Well, firstly, I don't think education has to take place in a school. It doesn't have to be in a school building. Education can happen anywhere. It can happen at home with your family. It can happen through lived experience. It can happen in any space. And I think that the right to learn in any capacity is, it is a human right. It's something that you can't take away. You can take away the ability to go to school. You can take away the ability to be in a structured place where you have to stand straight in line and you have to sit down at a desk and stare straight ahead and listen to a teacher pour knowledge into you. Like, yeah, that's a form of schooling, but education itself can happen anywhere at any time. So I do think that it is something that is just a natural thing that happens.
So again, I feed off the energy and the response that we got a peek into how I perceived that response was that you are open to various types of quote unquote education. I'll be more specific and say learning. Thank you for specifying education, and I'll go more specific and say, is the opportunity to be educated in an academic space where you are learning a human rights, particularly in schools. I'll say public because private is the choices in how you get there and how you stay there are interesting. And so do you believe public education in a learning space, as you articulated, is a human right?
Currently?
Well, that's in general, despite what we know with it's going on, in general, do you believe it's a human right? I mean, based on your response to that answer, I know what your answer is, but
it should be. It should be. I believe it should be.
Okay.
But again, when we think about access, when we think about the ways that students, for example, students who have different abilities or learning differences, do they have access to the same um, level or commitment to learning as students who are seen as more traditional students?
Mm,
I think about ability a lot because I think that most people can understand ability in different ways. It doesn't have to be regarding like an intellectual ability, or it can just be a physical ability, right? If I have a school building where there are no wheelchair ramps, someone who is in a wheelchair cannot access that space. If I have a classroom where I have a student who needs extra time to take a test, and I, as a teacher, cannot provide a space for them to have that extra time to take a test, they don't have that same access. They don't have that same level of ability to be successful. So I think um, back to your original question, I think it depends on access and how much we're focusing on making things as accessible as possible to as many students as possible.
again, we got a little peek into your philosophy toward education and learning, and I love it because it with so many efforts to in general fight certain information, accurate history,
Mhm.
historical information for those that are. And I love how you said traditional learning versus quote unquote mainstream,
Yeah,
because words matter. And
yeah.
that's indication in there that, you know, if you're not a traditional learner, are you not in the mainstream of resources? Are you not in the mainstream of access? And so I'm hearing these things from you that's giving us a peek into your philosophy toward education. Let me also ask you this. Are you aware if there ever was a Black woman that ran for the school committee in Foxborough?
I've tried to find like something in print, something in research, and I've just had to ask around. As far as I know, no, there hasn't been.
Okay.
But I'm not 100% sure.
Okay.
Yeah.
Let me ask you, why is it in 2024
Mm.
there has never been a Black woman from just your this is opinion maybe and just you know why are you just now being the first, which is awesome, we're not taking away from that,
Thank you.
but in 2024 it's just I looked at it and I said that's
Yeah.
interesting, you know what I mean? So your thoughts on that?
I feel like that's not a question for me. You gotta ask the town. Here it's like in this town, and Boston's the only school district within Massachusetts that doesn't have an elected school committee. Their committee is appointed. So here it's the votes of the people. So even if someone has run and just wasn't elected, that was the town's decision. Um, so I don't know why they haven't elected someone. I think that right now, as far as the way that I have campaigned, I think that I was really intentional about connecting with individuals. So I put out like a Google form for people to sign up for me to come to them to sign my nomination papers. So that way I was in people's living rooms at their kitchen tables having conversations, and they saw my website, they saw my research, and we talked, and they could see that I was experienced. I knew what I was talking about. I was able to connect with them on a personal level. Um, and I don't know how many candidates have done that, whether they were Black or not. But that's, I don't know. I can't answer that question. um, yeah, I don't know.
Where listen, one thing I can respect about a candidate, an incumbent elected official, chief, department leader in municipality, state, county, federal position is tell us the truth. And if you don't know, you don't know. We respect that more than you know. You sitting up here, I think there was a sister that no. And I love the response of you got to ask the people, and that
Yeah.
is inclusive of you know folks that live in the town, and for whatever reason, many just maybe not interested or may not. Let me ask you this based on
Mhm.
a thought I was getting ready to say. How have you been generally received in this climate where there's a lot of racism, a lot of pushback on Black women leading? How have you been received in the town of Foxborough?
So far, the people that I've interacted with face to face have been extremely helpful, extremely kind.
Yep.
The reason why I went about getting my signatures the way I did was because at first I was going door to door. And so in my neighborhood, I was walking around like the side streets. And at first I was really uncomfortable with that because I'm from Boston. Like, you don't just walk up to people's houses. Like, you don't do that. So I did that here. And there were some people who didn't open their doors. They came to the window and said like, no, no, thank you. And I was like, okay, respect it.
Yeah.
Then there were other people again who invited me in, and I was like, do I go into their house? Like, what? How does this work? And they were super kind and super supportive. So I think that, and this is something that I also, side note, when Nikki Giovanni came last week and spoke at UMass Boston, I was there. Love her. And I got the chance to ask her for advice for Black women who are positioned to lead in spaces where, you know, we aren't in the majority, but we have the experience, we have everything that we need, the qualifications to be in positions of leadership. And what she told me was to pay no mind to people who don't like you, who don't support you. There will always be someone who is going to be your friend, who's going to support you, who's going to help you out. And those are the people that you stick with. And I found that. I definitely think that I found my people who are willing to push and willing to get other people on board, spread the message. Like, that's the beautiful part that I think I'm seeing. There are, of course, people who are saying that they are going to vote for other candidates, which is fair. It's an election.
Yep.
But I think the people who are for me are really powerful, and they're movers. They get people together. They're spreading the message. They're emphasizing that experience and proof of the work that you've done, proof of results is what's important. And if we want the best for our students, you want the best person for the job in the role.
One of the things I wanted to ask you is, I'm listening to you, and Foxborough would be any place where there needs to be improvement in education would be blessed to have you. But I wanted to ask, do you have any other political aspirations to where that knowledge and experience and what we're hearing from you today can be an influence on a larger scale? And I believe that's a question that's often in community around candidates and incumbents. And so I wanted to ask because, well, a little bit of the motive is I'm like, wow, she can really have a good influence at the federal and, you know, state level and whatnot. But, you know, if you want to, you know, you have 2 children,
Yeah.
you know, and so, but do you have any other aspirations to have a larger scale influence on policy?
That's a great question. I would be open to it. I think just the way I was raised, civic responsibility is something that's huge. So wherever I am, I'm willing to use my skills, my talents, my abilities in that space. So right now, being in Foxborough with 2 young kids, like that's something that I'm super passionate about because they're going to be entering the school system soon. And I want to make sure that everything is set up for them, you know, as much as possible for them and whoever else is in the school system. Everyone benefits, like I said. So I would be open to something at a higher level, city, state, national, I don't know. And I'd be open to being in those spaces, but I'm starting here, start at home, and then possibilities may open up.
Okay. So what's the website where folks can find information about you? How do they contact you? If you look to the right, there's a private chat. So if you put the website there, and also, and I know Tashad's probably going to have it in the comments before we
Of course.
we could get it up. But the website, and also if you still have that Google Doc open, if people that are in Foxborough, or if you're from Boston and want to support this young woman's experience and knowledge, passion, philosophy toward education and equity, we're going to make sure that you get the information. And here is the website about to come up real quick. We'll put it in the comments, as well as the band. Well, once it's in the comments, you guys are good. And so it's hyperlinked right there where you can go to Tiye Cort Odima's website and get the information. Look. Tashad's not paying.
Tashad's on it.
Always.
Love my family. Love my family.
Listen, and that says something. If your family supports you, my mother's in here, my sisters come in here. If family supports, then that means a lot. And so is there anything that you wanted to ensure that we covered, any message you wanted to get out? You know, I didn't do the traditional what's your platform and blah, 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 but not blah, 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 but is there anything you wanted to communicate to the audience that will go back, you know, folks from Foxborough, I'm sure folks that are supporting you are going to share this. Is there anything that you would like to say to the residents of Foxborough specifically in reference to them supporting you and your candidacy?
Yeah. So again, my name is Tiye Cort Odima. I'm looking forward to serving in the role of school committee member, amplifying the voices of our smallest groups within our student body, so minority groups of all kinds. And I think that if you follow my background, my experience, the ways that I have been influential in curriculum and instruction in the past, and currently, I look forward to using those same experiences, that knowledge of policy and of teaching, learning, pedagogy, to collaborate with the rest of the committee members to make the best decisions for our kids.
Okay. So the way you came out the gate, with you know how you approach signatures, you were up in people's living rooms, knocking on the doors. You know, I got a little political experience. Okay, and okay, so and in all fairness, for those that are watching, yes, I have a candidate that's running for a political office. However, this is, as far as we know, in our lifetime, or in this span of us being on this platform right now, first Black woman to run for Foxborough Public School Committee. And I thought it was important, in given the times that we are in, that we highlight not just her because she's a Black woman. So no, this is not what do they call that? The demographic politics or whatever. No, you heard the experience. Now, is she a Black woman? And I'm yes, cheering for her. But her and others, they don't come to the table just with their wonderful melanated skin. They come with a lot of experience through a lot of stuff. And so I was so honored to chat with you today and get a perspective and no longer call you Ty.
I appreciate that.
I said it with boldness. I was like, oh, okay. So I'm good. And then I looked this morning and I'm like, So thank you so much for being with us this morning.
Thank you for having me.
What you're doing. Folks, if you were in the Foxborough area, please check this sister out. She approached me. No one else has that is running for this. And so there's that. So with that being said, thank you so much. I hear the wonderful children.
Oh no.
No, that's not a bad thing. That's good. Listen, the mayor was on, and I heard it came up in one of her events. She talked about it. The mayor was on, and one of the kids came running, like in camera. So you're fine. You're fine.
Okay.
Listen, that is, last question.
Yes.
Mommy candidates, mommy electeds, mothers, and I say mommy respectfully, candidates and electeds who are mothers. If you had, I like this one, I'm thinking about it right now. If you had the ability to talk to the mayor of Boston, to talk to Congresswoman Presley, to talk to Mayor Janey, to talk to women who are mothers, who also have a responsibility in leading in a civic leadership space, to which you spoke earlier, what would you say to them? As someone that's coming in, now they're in it.
Yeah.
What would you say?
I would say that, number one, I applaud their ability to do it all. I am blessed to have my mom able to step in and help out. So she's trying to keep them quiet upstairs, but they're starting to coo and move around. So that's why you hear them. But it is tough. It's tough to manage everything. Even right now, like I'm scheduling meetings with the superintendent and with principals, and like I have to think about, when are the kids going to be napping? Who's going to be here to watch them? My husband is extremely helpful as well and super supportive. So it's a juggling act. And I think that it's something that we don't talk about often. It takes a lot to be able to organize and do all that, which I think also speaks to their ability to do their jobs well. There's a lot that you have to manage behind the scenes, and to be able to still stand in front of audiences and speak to other policymakers and be articulate and coherent, like after dealing with little ones all day, like that's a lot. And so I applaud them for that. I applaud them for still being able to and having the desire to sometimes step away from your own family to take care of other people. That's a choice. And I think that when you're thinking about the greater good, you're thinking about the ultimate benefit for more people other than yourself. Sometimes that's a sacrifice you have to make. But yeah, I think first I would applaud them for that and for leading by example. And then ask them if they need a babysitter, like offer some help as well. Like, it's a lot, and I get it.
That shows that you know everything that you're talking about. You did not end with saying, hey, we know you got a meeting over here. I don't have a meeting this night. So
yeah, it's a community effort. It is.
Let me find out you about to start the electeds, mummy electeds support group babysitting club.
That is a necessary thing.
I can see y'all walking into a community meeting somewhere, the Boston and Foxborough line, and exchanging children.
Yes.
Yeah, you got
take them up the carrier, hand them over. I'm down. That's a great idea.
Oh, listen, don't play. Listen, here's the shot in the background.
I see.
That would be dope. Listen, I thank you for being here.
Thank you.
And to get the opportunity to know you, yes, as a candidate, but as a person as well. And so Godspeed with what you're doing. And thank you for being with us.
Thank you so much.
Thank you for raising a lot of what we need to pay attention to when it comes to our children. We haven't seen the full impact of the pandemic yet.
Right.
So yeah, we need folks like you that understand. So 2, 3, 4, 5 years out. Yeah, I really appreciate you coming with us today.
Thank you. Thank you so much for having me again. This was fun.
Thank you. Thank you so much. Folks, if you are in the Foxborough area or know someone, I'm going to go ahead and take the chance and say it. Have them check this sister out. Okay? Because it's not just her wonderful melanated skin. That was a part of it. She's a Black woman running, and I wanted to let y'all know we got opportunity for there to be a first. And it's so apropos during Women's History Month. So it was great to have her here with us this morning. Listen, tomorrow morning at 9 a.m., we are ending out Black History. Well, it is Black History, but it's Women's History Month. It's Black History 24/7, 365. But for Women's History Month, we have a Black queen by the name of Nia, who has a place that's called Grace by Nia. So tomorrow morning at 9 a.m., we're firming up some of the tech stuff tonight. We'll be speaking with her exclusively tomorrow from Grace live at 9 a.m. for Freestyle, special edition of Freestyle Friday. And so plan to tune in tomorrow morning at 9 a.m. We also wanted to let you know that next week, you will, if you're able to come, again, Mother's Board and all of y'all, when I say this, I'm not looking for y'all because there's a lot of logistics coming downtown that time of evening, things like that. But there is a agricultural advocacy day at the State House. And as many of you know, I have done a couple of live sessions at Boston Public Market. And so we're going back there this coming Wednesday, April 3rd at 4 p.m. We will not go live. I am going to do a little tech test today. But we're going to be in the center of Boston Public Market. And I just don't trust the Wi-Fi for us to make a good production. However, we will cast that broadcast and that conversation that I'm going to have there that evening. But for those of you that work in the City Hall area, come through. We're going to be there till about 5:45. So after work, everybody at City Hall, everybody at the State House that supports the platform, please plan to come down. And I think that is it for today. I think that is. Let me just check the phone. I don't got no messages from the team. I don't know who the heck that is. So that's it for me this morning. We're going to get ready to go. Have a great day, everybody. And we will see you we'll see you tomorrow morning, rather, at 9 a.m. And I don't think I have any other announcements. Blah, 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 blah. I think that's it. The weekend of the 12th through the 15th for the Boston Marathon, please keep that in mind. We're going to do 2 podcast recordings with folks that are running the Boston Marathon. Saturday, April 13th, we'll be at Roxbury Community College at the Reggie Lewis Center with the Black Unicorns, which is sort of the arm of Black runners that come from across the world. Adrian and the team and others wanted to make sure that there's a thriving running community here for the Boston Marathon that's from here. And so make sure they feel welcome, get them into Black spaces to support and restaurants and things like that. So they're working actively on that. All right, last review of the comments, and we're going to get off of here. It's 9:45. UCB, you get an hour today. What's my heat on? I'm in short sleeves. I sure am. Tashad with it. From your calendar, FW. Alexa, cancel. Starts in 15 minutes. Alexa, cancel. I forgot to tell Alexa volume 0 earlier. So that means it's definitely time for me to get ready to go. Miss Teresa, you talk about you running, and I saw something up in here about you feeling better. I hope that you are. All right, folks, I'm getting off of here. Tomorrow morning, 9 a.m. with Grace by Nia. Have a great day, everybody, and we'll see you again tomorrow morning at 9 a.m. Where's my little thing? All right, we're off of here. Peace.